Hey, darlings. In the morning, as usual, Lana woke up minutes before the alarm. The room was cool. The dawn was breaking outside the windows. The sounds of the waking city were heard from the open window. She got used to getting up early, but today she could have slept longer. There was no hurry. No one needs to cook breakfast. She is completely alone, and it is so unusual. After lying in bed, she got up and went to the bathroom, slightly leaning on her right leg. It happens in the mornings. It hasn't happened yet. After leaving the bathroom, Lana stepped on the toy bus and almost fell, but she held on, leaning on the boxes with 3 rows standing in the corridor along the wall. These boxes were quite free of space. However, they couldn't figure out what to do with them for the last 5 months. Lana didn't even remember what exactly was in those boxes. But apparently, something very important, since it didn't come in handy for almost 6 months, was that they were living in a new place. How fast time flies, Lana thought. Yes, we still need to get together with the spirit and figure out these forgotten boxes. Can we start right today? Once the day was completely free. With these thoughts, she poured a cup of coffee, took a half-dried beetroot, and, wrapped in a blanket, climbed back to the bed. So, how many hours have passed? It's too early to call. They haven't arrived yet. Lana drank the burning coffee and felt the warmth spreading throughout her body. A candy would have been a thought in her head, but in their house, such luxury does not exist. She eats everything at once, without having time to sit in boxes and vases. All of them, and she and her husband and the girls are crazy sweet eaters. I need to plan the day. Tomorrow I have my first shift. The team seems to be good. They've already met. And the surgeon, I'll be honest, is great. Lana sadly smiled at her thought. The surgeon could be a great surgeon, but I'll just be a good doctor. From Novosibirsk to St. Petersburg, they moved in mid-October. The city was not welcoming new residents. The gloom met them with autumn, rainy weather. The children immediately got cold, and the first month of living in the old house that had not been repaired since the time of Peter the Great, with coughs, wheezes, mishmash, and dash, seemed like hell. Igor earning an authority in the new place. He spent almost all his time at work. He left early, came late, and Lonnie had to cope with all the household troubles. What is worth remembering about the epic of the cockroach that perfectly felt like they were the owners of the past? And then washing the floors, windows, bathrooms, changing the wallpaper everywhere for fresh ones, and much more. Comfort and cleanliness take away a lot of time and effort. But 2 months later, the Andreev family met the new in a renovated apartment with a huge, elegant Christmas tree and presents under it. The new place was full of new ideas and thoughts, and it was time to remember and grieve about the great surgeon's career that had passed, which Professor Sveridov predicted. It was with him that she conducted her first, in his opinion, brilliant surgeries, and the surgeon managed to work for just a little over a year. It didn't all happen because of a banal injury. She just rode a bicycle and fell. Not to say that she fell badly. She slightly turned her right hand and a pair of bruises on her right leg. But it was after this incident. She had severe pain in her hand and all over her leg. Stretching, aching, with uncertain periodicity, exhausted pain, the dream of standing for hours at the operating table, saving someone's life. 2 months of walking the doctors and all kinds of researches didn't give any result, no clarity. That's the mystery of nature. All limbs are healthy, but for some reason they hurt. Lana was very worried, but in the end, she calmed down, thinking that up there it was more visible who to be a surgeon and who to be an ambulance doctor. As often happens among doctors, especially surgeons, Lana was a believer and decided that, apparently, God chose a different path for her. And so tomorrow she goes on her first shift to the infirmary and is very happy about it. After all, it's a calling for people to be needed. Well, what? They got by, settled in a new place. Even the twins managed to get a place in the kindergarten. Life flowed slowly and quietly. Lonnie got bored of doing only this, so she decided that she had to work again. Igor grumbled for a moment that his salary in a new place is good, that he won't feed the family. But Lana convinced him how only she knew how, that she needed to fulfill her need to help people because she had studied for years for a reason. The husband did not argue, and as often as possible, he quickly agreed with the wife's arguments. When he received an invitation to increase his work in St. Petersburg, and he informed the family about possible changes, Lana, without thinking, supported her husband. "Of course, we will go, dear. You want this, don't you? And for us, this is a chance to change life for the better." She smiled with her unique smile, which conquered his heart years ago. How did these changes happen in time? Lonnie was very much in the mood to switch and move on to a new life, finally stopping to grieve about the lost hopes. She finished her coffee and started to unpack the remaining things in the boxes. It's good that the boxes are signed. It makes things much easier. In this big and heavy one, there are their family albums with lots of photos. We should sort everything according to the date, when there's time. Lana thought, flipping the album. "What's this photo?" She took out the card and started to look closely. "And we went to the ski base with the whole company. Here I am, and this is my Igorosh. Read Elena. Diamond is still with us. Fun student times." Lana studied at the second year of the medical school when she met Igor. He was also a student at the time. He studied at the Technical University for a programmer, a future profession. In one company, they happened to be Elena's birthday, Lana's best friend. There were young people who came to visit. Among them was Igor. They lived next door with Elena, went to the same school, and they were friends since childhood. Igor wasn't as handsome as his average friend Dima. He was an ordinary, thin, long-haired, slightly clumsy guy with gray hair and deep gray eyes. But he knew how to play the guitar and sing, and that attracted girls. Besides, he read a lot, told interesting stories, was smart, knew how to joke around, and he was shameless, unlike many other peers. Igor liked Lana right away. As they say, love at first sight. She was a beautiful girl, well-built, with a bunch of chestnut hair and shiny, bright eyes. And she smiled especially sweetly, as if she was being shy around everyone. She hasn't changed since then. She looked very young only she gained kg and started to collect her hair more often. But Igor changed. From a long distance, fat guy turned into a big, strong man, with his back like a stone wall. And he gave birth to a baby, and the cheeks grew. Last year, his birthday was celebrated, so his mother gave his son a beautiful velvet robe, and he barely walked on it. Then his mother-in-law mocked him, saying that, a good wife feeds her husband so deliciously that a boy grew up to 3 times his size. She gave him a good hand. Everyone was laughing at the table. In reality, Lana got a phone call back. She picked up the phone. "Yes, Lana, my dear, don't buy me milk today. Vidusha came to me, brought me everything, and went to the pharmacy too." The voice of an elderly woman was heard in the phone. "Margarita Iosifovna, you have a wonderful grandson. Be healthy." Lana put the phone down. The neighbor on the site helped her out more than once, staying with her daughters when she had to run to the store or for some business for a while. Wow, it's almost an hour. They must have arrived. Lana looked at the clock and dialed the familiar number. "Hi, on the line." They answered at the end. "Hello, Cossack." "Hello, sister. How are my friends? Have they arrived?" "Yeah. They're unloading. Malloy, call Mom. Now." Younger brother Vova threw the phone on the table. From afar, the ringing of the light obic, the excited whistling of Masha and Dasha, the joyful voice of Mom, the sound of knocking on the door. Against the background of all this fun, Vova's loud, breaking bass was heard. "Mom, Lana is calling. Go to the phone." Nobody came to the phone for a long time. Lana was waiting. I listened to the lively voices, laughter, and smiled. My family, how much I love you all. A few minutes later, Igor picked up the phone. Honey, are you still here? Mom is there. Don't go away. Hello, honey. I see. How did you get there? Great. Tafel Danish ofig met. He already prepared with Nastia. Tomorrow we will go fishing. Who would have doubted? Girls, how? They're carried around the yard for a dog. Or maybe it's not clear yet. Joy and full of pants. Igor laughed. Mom baked some pies. Everything is as usual, you know. How are you? Ready for work and defense? Ready. Well, smart girl. Okay. Go to the table. I wanted to say hello to my parents, but they are not here yet. Say hello. Sure. Kiss. I'll call you tomorrow. And I'll kiss you all. Bye. The decision to send the daughter to her grandmother and grandfather was made unilaterally by the whole family. In the Krasnodar region, they had already had warm weather in May, beauty, vegetables, fruits, sun, sea, and a complete recovery. Father Lana, Pavel Denisovich Morozov, served in the military all his life. He retired as a colonel in and immediately moved to his parents' house in the Kuban with his family. Of course, the old house was overgrown and tattered, but gradually new ones were built. They got a new house, chickens, geese, goats, a big garden was planted, a garden was spread out under the windows. Lana and her husband and children visited the house on vacation every year. And now, how did she get a job? They decided that Igor would take her daughter, visit her for a couple of weeks, and come back. And Masha and Dasha would stay until autumn. Grandma and Grandpa were only happy with grandchildren. The girls grew up 6 years after all. It's not hard with them. By September, the whole family will be going to celebrate Mom's anniversary. Then the girls will take home. Lana was looking forward to this event. She loved it when their whole big family gathered together. And Dennis and his wife will definitely come. Dennis is younger than Lana by only 2 years. A close soul. They grew up together. They told each other all their secrets. Like best friends. They raised Vova together. He was a little boy in the family. They still call him Malloy, as they used to do. Although the boy already says BAS. Danilov Lena. And he was terribly jealous when he started running after the neighbor girl. It was a long time ago. They lived in Krasnoyarsk. They were probably in the 5th grade. It didn't last long. A year later, Romeo left with his family to Novosibirsk. The father was a soldier in the family. Didn't discuss the order. The brother fell in love often and every time for real. By the 3rd time he fell in love, Lana had already grown up and got used to it. She stopped being jealous of her brother and began to give him practical advice on how to behave with girls. And Dennis married suddenly, right after the army. It's unclear where Larissa came from. They walked the same way for a month, and then they got married. Lonnie didn't like the bride. Her brother is handsome, he's funny, smart, and this little gray mouse. But later she changed her mind. Larissa turned out to be smart, transparent, and well-behaved. She went to the university herself and made Dennis study. Last year, her brother graduated from the higher school of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. The day flew by unnoticed, with thoughts and disassembly of the boxes. She decided to go to bed early today. Tomorrow is the first shift in the new place, and Lana was a little worried. Without minutes and minutes, she woke up as usual before the alarm clock. The shift starts at a.m. We need to get ready. The day was warm, but cloudy. The first month Lana was on an internship, and she was put to work with the senior doctor, Anatoly Sergeyevich, a grumpy man of years. He said it extremely rarely and only on business. On the road, he quietly laughed at the jokes of the young driver Grishka, but did not intervene in the dialogue. Grishka was talking for 2, if not for 3. He told all sorts of cases, anecdotes, and clearly wanted to like the new young doctor Svetlana Pavlovna. And there was another case, Grishka said. We come to the Monovizov, and there is a heart attack. The N is huge kilograms. Remember, Sergeyich, We were with you. So, she was barely laid down on the stretcher, and we still need to lower her from the second floor. But her man took to help us. And the Shiver himself clung to the stretcher. Let's go. Only in the door they passed, he stumbles. And down to the X-ray. Grishka laughed as if he was telling something funny. He squashed his nose. It was bloody. Svetlana Pavlovna, you're not afraid of blood, are you? I know some doctors who faint from blood. No, Grigory, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of anything at all, Sergeyevich silently said and smoked. Lana carefully watched how Anatoly Sergeyevich behaved at the challenges. What and how to do it, and she thought he was tired of working, without any interest like a machine, but the machine was working, giving the exact result. However, there were no very difficult challenges yet. 2 hypertrophy, high fever angina, a sharp stomach, and a life-threatening arm burn. They drove all over the city. At lunchtime, they stopped for lunch at the bakery, bought pies, and ate them on the way to the next challenge. So, we could say we had lunch. The call was made to the street of Nekrasov, in the neighboring house from where Igor and I were filming the apartment. The house was big, beautiful, spacious staircase openings, with flowers everywhere on the windowsills. We went up to the 3rd floor. The kind, heavy door with a large bronze handle opened a gentle girl in round glasses, making her look like a striker. Go right. There's a bathroom. Ella Lazarevna, the ambulance is here. She screamed somewhere deep inside the apartment. Svetlana Pavlovna and Anatoly Sergeyevich washed their hands and moved to the room where the patient was waiting. In the middle of the bedroom where they were, there was a huge bed made of walnut wood. Opposite, it was a massive dresser with a mirror and 2 small photos in black frames with a straw strip. Between them, there was an icon of the Mother of God and 2 silver lighters. On the wall above the commode, there was a large painting with a picture of a family of 3 people. On the left, there was a bed, a small bedside table, and above it there was a narrow, high window. Heavy cherry portholes and a round chandelier on the window were moved to the side, and the window door was open. There were 2 chairs with a high back next to the door opening. How nice that you came so quickly. A quiet voice from the bed heard. The old woman was barely noticeable among the pillows and blankets. She began to rise, trying to sit down. Don't get up. Lie down, please. You have high blood pressure. Lana rushed to her. Anatoly at this time nodded and guggled, listening to a heartbreaking story with the old man about what happened. What drugs did she give the old woman, and why did she decide to call an ambulance? Lana, meanwhile, was already measuring the pressure and pulse. To pulse, she said, "Wow." Again, Anatoly Sergeyevich was in response, preparing the injection syringe. Lana tied the old lady's hand with a twig, raised her elbows, and ordered loudly, "We're working with a fist. We need your wreath." The old lady froze for a moment and got nervous, as if she heard something unexpected. Then she said, "Natasha, give the doctor a chair. You're so careless." The nostril of Natasha flew away on the instruction of Sergey to the kitchen and did not hear the reproach to his address. "Doctor, please sit down on the bed. Do not be shy." "Thank you, do not worry. Now, Anatoly Sergeyevich will make you an injection and you will feel better. Does your head hurt?" "How strange," the old woman muttered. "Your voice sounds so familiar, so similar as if—" She kept silent, took a deep breath, and spoke a little quieter. "I'm a little girl. I can barely see anything. A cataract." Natasha returned with a silver spoon in her hands and stood next to the doctor. Sergey, with a gentle movement, led the needle into the vein, made an injection, and asked, "Does your head hurt?" "Yes, it's knocking in the whiskers like in a blacksmith." "Wow." Sergeyevich was in shock, and, taking the spoon from his hand, he stretched it out to Svetlana and began to fill in the call list. "Ella Lazarevna, open your mouth. I need to examine your tongue." Lana leaned over the old lady and carefully examined her face. Yes, she is not an old lady at all. Suddenly, Lana was discovered. A little wrinkled, just a sickly look and too thin. Anatoly Sergeyevich started asking standard questions and writing down the evidence in a card. Alana was staring at the picture. Suddenly, she wanted to come closer and look at it. She moved to the dressing room and suddenly felt a strong headache. And then her legs suddenly got numb. That was just not enough. She had to work until morning, and her leg was so tired and numb. She thought, looking at the painting on the wall. It was written in oil by Troy. A beautiful Shatinko in a light dress with a bouquet of rosaries in her hands was sitting in a rattan chair. On the right side of her was a lovely little girl, about 5 years old, holding the hand of a tall adult man in a white hat and a straw hat. The girl seemed unfamiliar to Svetlana. She reminded someone. The man, as you can see, the father of the family was standing behind, between the daughter and the wife, putting his right hand on the shoulder of the wife. The artist depicted a family resting in nature, in the background of a blue sky and thick-bore birch trees, casting shadows on the green grass, covering people from the bright sun. It was written beautifully, even probably talented, and gave the viewer a good mood. Despite all this, Lana smiled at them in response, not letting go of her pain. Undoubtedly, this young aristocratic lady was the owner of the apartment, Ella Lazarevna. Svetlana looked down at the photos on the dresser. These were morning portraits. On the right is a photo of the same man, which is depicted in the picture, but many years later. Lana turned her gaze to the left and was shocked to see her frozen, trying to understand what she saw. The rest of the shift was not Lana's own. Shocked by the photos of Ella Lazarevna in the apartment, she couldn't think of anything else. Her brain was trying to find an explanation for what it could be. It was her in the photo. It was her. Her eyes, her smile. Only her hair was lightened and short-haired. As always, Lana dreamed of doing it. But the hand did not raise to cut its long natural strands, and the husband loved them. Could it be such a similarity between people? Or does the double-edged theory really exist? Who is this girl? How old is she? Why did she die? Hundreds of questions were spinning in Lana's head, torturing and exhausting her. At night, there were several challenges with long breaks, and it was possible to even take a nap. But the thoughts didn't give her any rest. In the end, Lana decided to adopt a version of her twin. After some time, she thought about the strangeness of nature, and by the end of her shift, she almost calmed down. When she came home, she fell right from the door to the bed completely exhausted, and immediately fell asleep, without even taking a shower. In general, the first shift went well. In the worst cases, she didn't fall on their brigade, and she was tired of the unusual. It's okay, there are 2 weekends ahead. The work outside of the lab was not easy, but interesting. Lana was already used to the daily schedule of shifts and even found it convenient. At first, fatigue was compensated by interest for new work, and then by pleasure from the result. The challenges were different. In some cases, it was necessary to show persistence, sometimes loyalty, and sometimes even cunning. 3 weeks flew by unnoticed. Lana even managed to save up her stock of interesting cases and curiosities. Already on her 4th shift, she worked as a Maine doctor, and she was put into the brigade by a young boy after medical school. The big, indigenous Dima reminded her of a bull with a shy smile. The driver remained the same talkative Grisha. The brigade became friendly, worked together easily and harmoniously. After another day of work, having taken a shower, Lana went to sleep. A few hours later, her phone rang. Mom called. Lana, baby, I woke you up. It's okay, Mom. I'm already awake. Don't worry. Lana answered in a sleepy voice. I took Igor out to eat on the way, and he's going to straighten up. Go and influence your husband. He's been in the train for almost 2 days. Is he going to sit there hungry? He's whining. Okay, Mom, I'll talk to him, Okay, Dad gave you smoked fish, just like you like it. I put jam on each jar and a bag of nuts. The nuts were peeled, and they were chopped yesterday. Everything is homemade, tasty. Okay, Mom, thank you. And Masha and Dasha drew you drawings. We're all in the picture. Grandpa looks so much like him. She laughed with a girlish smile, who never changed over the years. Can you imagine? He's sitting on the top of the goat. She laughed again. Lana's mother was always a laughable girl. She sang and almost never got sad. Her life was full of success. That's what she thought. Her husband, children, everything was with her. And all the life difficulties, as soon as they were overcome, were immediately erased from memory for the sake of the need. And there were many of them in life. The officer's wife had a special role. She would go to the barracks, the dorms, the shooting corners with the little children, and the hungry, over-the-top years. Childhood sickness, sleepless nights. But Olga Sergeyevna Morozova followed this principle. You want to be happy? Be happy. She read a lot and used wisdom from books to do things. She didn't have enemies and villains. She loved everyone and was sure that everyone loved her in return, which, however, was true. Lana always admired her mother's resilience and vitality and took her as an example in her relationship with her husband. Having talked to her mother and father, Igor and his daughters, Lana went to the kitchen. She needed to eat something. She lost weight in these 2 weeks, and it was noticeable even though she was already a triplet. Igor definitely wouldn't like that. If she's worried, she'll start insisting on something else so that she can quit her job. We need to celebrate her return. Maybe buy a cake, or better, bake the cake itself. But the fridge needs to be filled with food for sure. She went to the store. When she came back home with the groceries, Lana went to the pharmacy. Her leg pain has become more frequent lately, and everything that was painless has ended up in the home pharmacy. Sonia Kramer? Is that you? A joyful female voice was heard from behind. Lana just took out her purse when an unfamiliar girl looked straight into her face through her shoulder and repeated, Sonia, don't you recognize me? It's me, Inga. Lana looked at the smiling girl confused. You're mistaken. I'm Svetlana. She quietly spoke, but the girl was filled with joyful laughter. And without listening, Lana accepted to hug her. Oh, Sonia, I see you, not you. That's the way we meet. I just came yesterday to visit my mom. I haven't been home for 3 years. I didn't think you were in St. Petersburg. You've been on expeditions all the time. You look great, by the way. How is Ella Lazarovna? Are you married? I came with my husband. He is Italian. Can you imagine? I never thought I would marry an Italian. Lana stood, smiled, and couldn't say a word. And there was nowhere to put the word. Inga spoke without a pause, not giving an opportunity to answer, and periodically laughing, hugging Lana by the shoulders. She was beautiful and tall, almost on top of Lana, like a model from a fashion magazine. Svetlana almost immediately understood who she was confused with by Inga and thought how to get out of this situation. Finally, the model kept silent, looking at Lana. By that moment, Svetlana decided not to rush to convince her new friend that she was mistaken. I'm fine, she said. I'm glad to see you too. I'm just in a hurry and my head hurts. Let's talk later. I see. And I think, why are you so strange? No. Inga was again terrified. Do you have a cell phone? Roberto gave me the newest model. Look at it, it's so cool. Have you ever seen such a cool model? Call me and ask me where to write the number. At that moment, the pharmacy brought Lonnie the necessary pills. Inga grabbed the box. Do you have a pen? Then she saw the pen at the store near the pharmacy. I'll borrow it. She smiled and, without waiting for the answer, she grabbed the pen and drew the number on the box. I'm going to pay now. Smiling at the fault, I turned to the pharmacist, Lana. Just call me right tomorrow. I'm not going to be long. I'll be gone in a week. Inga hugged Sonia's friend again and ran out of the pharmacy without buying anything. There was no mobile one at Svetlana's or Igor's, of course. Only Dimka, Igor's student year's friend, could afford such luxury from all their acquaintances. The athlete and handsome Dmitry Fomashev had only been at the institute for a year and was considered to be ineligible. Then he joined the businessmen, or rather the bandits. They parted ways with Igor, and they hardly talked. The last time they saw each other was at the day of twins' birth. Masha and Dasha were years old then. Foma appeared unexpectedly with 2 three-wheeled bikes of red color and a box of sneakers. He was there for minutes, then someone called him on his cell phone. Foma called the phonopipe. He said that without him, no one could do anything. He said goodbye to Andreev's family and ran away. And 2 months later, he was killed. Lana put the anal gin in her bag with the number of the NG and headed out. But after taking a step, she almost fell from a sudden, sharp pain. She grumbled and said, "You're all right, miss. Are you unwell?" The pharmacist got angry, trying to push the pregnant woman out of the shop, trying to help her. Lana stretched out her hand, as if stopping the woman with a heart attack. "It's all right. Don't worry. It'll be all right now." A couple of minutes later, the woman calmed down and Svetlana went home, a little bit grumpy. The next day, Lana was crying, preparing for the return of her beloved. She cleaned up the apartment, cooked a meal, and baked her own cake. Igor loved sweets, and especially the strepniat of his wife. Svetlana really did do experiments in the kitchen. She often collected cutouts from magazines and newspapers with sophisticated recipes, pasted them in her culinary notebook, and especially the dish she made, she marked with a check mark, thus assigning them the title of my signature recipe. Doing housework, she thought about yesterday's meeting with a bright, pretty girl who whistled at her in the pharmacy. The mystery of the amazing similarity with Sonia did not give Lana any rest and demanded an answer. What if I tell Inga that I'm not Sonia? I'll tell her that I know Ella Lazarevna, that she saw a photo in the morning frame, and that Sonia died. What will happen if we tell her everything? After thinking about all these thoughts, Lana already looked for a bag full of anal gene with Inga's phone number. We can ask her to tell her about Sonia, and maybe something in this story will become clearer. "Hello? Is this the Star?" Azarno answered Inga's call. "Inga? Hello. Hello." Lana was in a trance, but she got ready and continued with a confident tone. "Inga, I really need to talk to you. The arch is important. Can we meet today? If you're free, of course. Right now. Sonnet, is that you? Darling, I'm so glad you called." Inga's voice really sounded like an indomitable, sincere joy. "I've been mumbling about boredom all day today. My work was done in the morning, and I had nothing to do. So I sat down, pegged to the TV. I didn't even have anyone to talk to. You call me by the way. Then maybe we'll meet?" "No problem, baby." The beauty was delighted. "Where? Maybe we'll go to the restaurant? If you don't mind, come to me. We'll have some tea, and I'll tell you something." "Oh, secrets? Of course I'll come. And how does Ella Lazarevna feel about that? If we drink not only tea, I have amazing Italian wine, real right from Italy, you know? It's amazing, just a nectar of love." Lana didn't think at all that Inga would go to her or Sonia. She explained, "Inga, I have another address now, write it down. And I'm really looking forward to you." Half an hour has passed, and rang the door several times in a row. The bell rang happily, as if informing that the guest had brought a good mood behind the door. Inga appeared in full parade. White trousers with thin fabric and huge heels created the impression that she was standing on the sidewalk. A sky-blue chiffon blouse wrapped her breast and thin waist with a cloud. Inga's face was so cute, and she looked like a porcelain doll. She bent her eyebrows, taking a bottle of expensive wine out of her super fancy bag, and winked at Lana. "We're having fun. My friend." Lana didn't plan the fun. Inga went into the room, looking around. "What? You're tired of being a mom, since you decided to move to a separate residential area. It's not luxurious, of course, but freedom is expensive. What are these dolls, balls, toys? You're married after all? And you have children already? You're giving me a sonnet. I'm happy for you. Inga pulled herself together. Having endured the delight of new acquaintances, Lana looked at her seriously and said, Inga, I have to tell you something. The thing is, I'm not Sonia. She said it clearly, almost on the slag, and then added more calmly. My name is Svetlana. Inga hurried for a few seconds, looked at her friend, opened her mouth. There was a tense silence. Then she shook her hands and muttered, So what? Even change her name? Wow. No, you didn't understand me. Lana's patience overshadowed her. Please sit and listen. The story was short. And what was there to tell if Lana didn't understand what was going on? Inga was sitting there, opening her mouth full of surprise, when Lana kept silent after the story was over. Here it is. Sonia is dead. What a pity. She was so good. Inga's face showed an expression of an offended child. It seemed she was about to cry. Her blue eyes shone. She flinched, but seconds later her eyes suddenly widened. Her face stretched out, and she called out, I understand, Sveta. You're her twin sister. You were just stolen. Inga presented several versions of how, in her opinion, her sisters were separated. In one version, they stole Svetlana. In another, on the contrary, Sonia. There was also a version where both were stolen. There were both cunning gypsies who sold their children for money, and drunk who confused all the children in the maternity home. But all the assumptions of Inga were more like Indian cinema than the truth, especially since Lana knew the facts about her birth, according to the stories of Mom and Dad. And these facts were confirmed by several photographs with the signature of the date and place. The very first picture of Svetlana was taken just when she was discharged from the maternity home. On the photo card, the young father in military uniform was holding a roll of the blanket, tied with a pink ribbon. This roll was Lana's, and Mom was holding a large woven basket of a lullaby. And in the right corner of the photo card is the inscription, November, City of Tomsk. The girls talked for almost half a night. Inga told everything she knew about the Son-Kramer family, but she didn't do very well. Emotionally gesticulating, laughing and sad, the beauty was mostly talking about herself. Svetlana had to interrupt her all the time and direct the conversation in the right direction. She managed to learn a little. It turned out that Sonia and Svetlana were the same age. Sonia was born in Leningrad, and when she had her birthday, Ingel didn't know, because they weren't close friends. In the Kramer family apartment, Inga was there once, and everything she remembered was a luxury. Boris Lvovich Kramer was a professor. He taught history at the university. He studied science, knew a couple of foreign languages, and translated articles by foreign scientists. He seemed to have some awards and titles, and therefore they lived like cheese and butter. According to Inga, his father adored his Sonia and adored her. Dressed up, Sonia was always the latest fashion, had everything best, and at the end of school, his father gave her a real red and white motorcycle. Ella Lazarovna fell into hysterics from her husband's actions, and they had a serious scandal at home. After that, her mother felt bad with her heart, and even an ambulance was called. And Sonia ran away from home and didn't even come to spend the night. The professor then called all her friends and classmates, searching for her daughter. In general, the Kramer family were intelligent people, and they almost never had scandals at home. In the eyes of all acquaintances, they were an exemplary, indicative, and super beneficial family. Boris Lvovich was much older than his wife and was very attached to his wife and daughter. He loved them very much. He bought dresses, gifts, often took them to the sea for a vacation. Sonia's mother, Ella Lazarevna, was a musician. She played the violin in the orchestra of some musical theater. She had long dreamed that Sonia would become a great pianist or violinist. But Sonia refused to go to a music school. While her daughter was still a baby, her mother taught her how to play the piano and violin. Then she was hired by the rehearsers, and the girl even did a decent job. But in the 8th grade, she suddenly got into motor racing, dropped the music, and enrolled in a motor school. It was more correct to say that Sonia was attracted to a motogonist. The hero was called Lyoko Michalchik, and he studied in a parallel class. The winner of the competition was Sonia on a motorcycle, and all the girls envied their romance. From that time on, the quarrels and disputes in the exemplary family began. Ella was hysterical about the fear of her only daughter, and Boris was calming his wife down and not hindering Safachka's interests. He thought Sonia was a smart girl, trusted her, and allowed everything. With time, the romance of Sophia and Lyoka slowly faded. Michalchik was taken to the army. Sonia was preparing to enter the university, and the storm in Kramer's family subsided. Inga left for Moscow after graduation and entered a modeling school. The last time she saw Sonia Kramer was at the meeting of her classmates. Ingulia had been working as a model for the fashion house of Vyacheslav Zaitsev for a year, and it was a big hit among former classmates. The Moscow beauty told a lot about fashion shows, competitions, glossy foreign magazines, and the whole holiday was in the center of attention. She didn't remember anything about what Sonia was doing. She would have graduated from the institute, but she studied at a geologist for some reason. But Inga told us how a cool dude came for Sonia in a car. It was her boyfriend Stas. According to her classmates, they were in a band with Sonia. In a rock club, I guess. The name of which is Goliath. Inga remembered the name only because her dog was called Goliath. That evening, the girls didn't see each other anymore. And what happened in Sonia's life, Inga didn't know. According to rumors, 3 years ago her father died and left Sonia a decent amount of money. Ella Lazarovna had an insult from grief. That's actually all Inga Lani said. How, when, and why Sonia died, Inga did not know. What Svetlana felt that she needed to find out everything to the end. So we need to visit Ella Lazarovna. She met Igor after a day of work, and it turned out that he was the one who met her at home, not her. But when she left for work, her wife left a surprise for him, a serving table with his favorite dessert and a love letter. A short letter on a notebook with a kiss on the lip balm. A couple of phrases about how she missed him, how he loved him, and how lucky she was to be married to such a wonderful man. Svetlana tried to support romance and family relationships. That's what she learned from her mother, Olga Sergeyevna, as a mass-producing. Dad was only counting the bills and smiling with his bright face. The surprise for Igor worked. In return, he immediately fulfilled Lana's previous wishes and bought tickets to the youth theater on the fountain. How useful it is to speak of your wishes aloud. All day they were together hugging in front of the TV. Lana, tired after the shift, and Igor the same from the train. Both wanted to do nothing and sleep. In the morning, after working with her husband, Lana decided to visit Ella. The plan was simple: to come to the doctor's office to handle the patient's health. Lana was standing at the door, about to press the bell, and thoughtfully talked about how to explain her visit. When the door opened, and Natasha's hair flew out onto the platform. "Hello, are you here?" "Hello. Yes, I wanted to know how Ella feels. I'm a doctor, Svetlana Pavlovna." "Oh, yes, you were on the ambulance. I recognized you." "Come in." Natasha let Alana in, slammed the door, and ran away. I wonder why Natasha doesn't react to my similarity with Sonia. She's wearing glasses, but still pretty. Alana thought by accident. She was standing in the dark corridor and was slightly confused. She coughed loudly and said, "Ella Lazarevna, this is the doctor. May I come in?" "Who's there?" The owner called from the depths of the apartment. "Come in." Lana went to the voice and found herself in a huge room, apparently made of two. Instead of a once blank wall, these rooms were now connected by a large arch. 4 high windows, 2 per each half, made the room very bright. At first, Lana was slightly surprised that this huge room, in its setting, resembled a concert hall. But the next moment she remembered from Inga's story that Sonia's mother was a musician. There wasn't much furniture here. A round table covered with a white board. Around it there were chairs with high soft backrests. Near the arch there were two small sofas with high bent legs. There was practically no furniture in the second half of the room, behind the arch. The floor was decorated with a large Persian carpet with flower patterns and ornaments in beige, green, and lilac tones. In the very middle of the carpet, a luxurious white piano was overflowing with sparkling glitters. Lana never saw such a magnificent instrument so close. The owner was sitting in an invalid wheelchair near the open window. In the bright sunlight, she looked much younger than Lonnie seemed to be in the last visit. A pleasant old woman, a bit sick-looking and a bit skinny, but not old at all. The chestnut hair was gathered into a high-cut hairstyle with curls, exactly the same as in the picture in the bedroom. The eyebrows are clearly outlined. The lips are slightly tinted with a light pink lipstick. She was wearing a long-sleeved linen dress. The woman's feet were covered with a blue plaid. Ella Lazarevna, hello, my name is Svetlana Pavlovna. I'm a doctor. I came to see if you're well. Hello, my dear. Have a seat. I recognized you by your voice. She pointed her hand towards the chairs. I don't have to see if I'm well. I'm not well. Doctors are now taking care of my diseases. She smiled sadly. I'm glad you came. Today I feel better, and I want to talk to you. I live across the street from you. I thought I'd come in and find out how your blood pressure is. I have everything with me. Let's measure it. Oh, leave it, Svetlana. Remind me how your blood pressure is. You can do it without blood pressure. Just Svetlana. What's the point of measuring it? Today we've measured it 100 times. I feel good, and that's the main thing. Let's talk to you if you have time for that, of course. Yes. Lana smiled. I have a day off today, and I will gladly accompany you. You know, Sveta, your voice is very similar to the voice of my daughter, Sonia. I'm glad to hear you. Tell me about yourself. Is your job difficult? How are you doing? You seem to have a very kind heart. Ella looked at Lonnie right in the eye, and it seemed she could see her very well. But in fact, the woman only saw the outline of the figure in the face. Well, it's my profession. Doctors are needed to help people when they are in bad shape. And you are a pianist? I have never seen such a beautiful piano. I'm a violinist, but I also own a piano. And the piano was given to us by Daddy when Sonia was. My husband Boris Lvovich was a professor, an academic, a doctor of historical sciences. By his abilities, he was also an extraordinarily generous person. Sonia immediately began to show interest in the piano, and we played Etude Ludwig's Cuties with her when she was. She was an amazingly capable child. Do you have children, Svetachka? Yes. We have 2 twins, Masha and Dasha. They turned in May. You're so smart. Children are wonderful. God didn't give me the health to give birth to children. Sonia is our only daughter with Boris. We became parents too late. I was and Boria is. You, Svyaka, are a doctor, and you know that giving birth to children with a sick heart is dangerous. My body has always been weak in health. I couldn't bring the baby out twice. The doctors strictly forbade me to get pregnant again. But Boris Lvovich dreamed of children. She turned away from the lanyard and continued looking out the window. I decided to take a risk. She smiled sadly and turned her gaze back to the lanyard. You can't imagine how much suffering I had to endure while carrying out the baby. My pregnancy was in the hospital ward. I risked my life for the sake of my motherhood. Ella again kept silent, then took a deep breath and started talking as if she was talking to herself, plunging into her memories. He was just fooling around with the child. He knew I could die, but he didn't talk me out of it. He dreamed that I would give him a little girl that looked like me, a little princess. I had to. Ella Lazarovna was in the open, and Lana dared to ask, "What happened to your daughter?" Sonia died in the mountains in Altai last summer. The elderly woman's lips trembled. The door slammed in the corridor. Probably your seat has returned. See? Ella Lazarovna was surprised and raised her eyebrows. I don't need a seat. I can manage on my own. It's hard, but I can still get up if I need to, and I can take care of myself, thank God. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. I was in a hurry to fix my lanyard. I just thought Natasha was watching over you. I wasn't offended. Natasha is the daughter of Boris Lvovish's niece. She came to perform, and of course I gave her the corner. She's nice, and to be honest, I'm not that lonely with her. Ella softly said, I have to go. She sat down. It's so nice to talk to you. Lana got ready. Well, we just have time to drink tea. 5 o'clock. Do you know this English tradition? Don't refuse, Sveta. Join us. I would gladly do it next time. I would come to you again, if it is convenient. Why not convenient? Come, of course. I am more comfortable and reliable with you when the doctor is nearby. Joking Ella. Promise to visit me, dear. Absolutely. Ella Lazarevna. They said goodbye, and Lana left the apartment, even without meeting the hairdresser. From the conversation with Ella and Lazarina, Ella didn't understand why Natasha didn't notice her strong resemblance to Sonia. She just didn't see her alive, and apparently she didn't consider the portrait. That's the whole secret. People don't consider others very often. Everyone is busy with themselves. Svetlana came home determined to solve the mystery of her twin. She took the notebook and wrote down everything she knew about Sophia and her family. After the next shift, Lana baked a pie with apples and went back to visit Ella Lazarovna. She was sincerely happy. Natasha laid the table. The pie turned out to be very tasty. The striker ate a couple of pieces of pie and went to her room to prepare for the exams. And Lana and Ella Lazarovna were still talking for a long time. The elderly woman willingly told about her life, remembering her daughter and husband. Svetlana already asked questions without hesitation. You know, dear, I don't even have a friend with whom I can share my personal life. And you seem so close to me that I can't help but be honest with you. I am very pleased with your trust and interested in listening to stories from your life. Ella Lazarevna. Thank you, dear. Would you like me to show you our family album? Of course. Lana was happy. Perhaps it will explain something in her relationship with Sonia. You'll have to bring it from Boris Lvovish's office, dear. The office was located at the very end of the corridor. There was a massive desk in a small but cozy room with a desk lamp, a radio receiver, and a large photo frame. The wall behind the table, from the floor to the ceiling, was closed by a high bookshelf with books. On the shelves, there were statuettes and souvenir figurines. Ella Lazarevna ordered to take an album on the shelf with a bronze owl. Lana looked for the owl figure with her eyes, and when she found it, she found a weighty album in a leather coat. Leaving the professor's office, she looked at the photo card on the table. In the photo, Boris Lvovish was holding little Sophia on his knees. His face shone with pride and love for his only daughter. Dr. Nock was not at ease in his little princess, thought Lana, closing the door of the office. A new turn in the investigation of Lana began with a photo in the album of the Kramer family. There were many photos. Most of them were taken at resorts, where the father professor took the family out every year. But there were also photos of relatives celebrating various family celebrations. Ella Lazarevna seemed to know the album's details. Svetlana described the photos, asking those who were in the photos, and the woman told them with pleasure, remembering the places, events, and dates. However, in the album, the neat handwriting under each photo, dates were signed, and often even the place where the photo was taken. Looking at one of the next photos, Lana suddenly felt goosebumps running down her back. Her heart beat faster. This was a common photo of relatives on the anniversary of Mother Ella, Rosa Avramovna. Lana could even recognize some of them. Here in the very center of the picture with the bouquet in the hands is the victim of the celebration, Rosa Avramovna was a solid, dark-haired woman, well-groomed and beautiful looking for her age. On the right of the mother was the eldest daughter Ella with her husband Boris, and on the left hand is the youngest daughter Maria, holding the pregnant belly. Masha's husband held their eldest son, a boy, at the age of 5, in his arms. Sonia was not in the photo. A black pen and an inscription were printed under the card. The city of Tomsk, August. Mom's th anniversary. Lana felt that she had found something important, and that something would shed light on the mystery of her mysterious resemblance to Sonia. The city of Tomsk? She exclaimed in surprise and impatience. Ella Lazarevna, you lived in Tomsk? Tomsk? That's the year before Svetlana was born. Yes, the woman smiled. Why are you so surprised? I was born in Siberia. Only the health of the Siberian god didn't give me any inheritance, you know. My father, the kingdom of heaven, was a heartbreaker. He died very early. I was only 3 years old. I don't remember him at all. The woman poured herself some already cooled tea and asked, You probably don't care, darling. I'm sorry I'm drowning in my memories, my friends. No, of course not. It's very interesting. Lana hurriedly protested, fearing to scare the luck away. Ella Lazarevna took a sip of the porcelain cup and continued. I was raised by my father. My mother married a military doctor again. And I had a sister, Masha. She's got a real Siberian health. She's strong, like her father, Ivan Ilyich. He was a good man. He never offended me. He always treated me like his own daughter. Then Ella said that after noticing her success in music, her parents sent her to Leningrad, and she entered the conservatory. She met Boris there and got married. Lana brought back the memories of Ella Lazarevna to the event in the photo. Sonia wasn't there then, was she? She was. Ella and Griva laughed. She's even in this photo. I'm just still carrying her. The deadline is short. I can't see her. It turned out that Ella Lazarevna spent almost her entire pregnancy in Tomsk. She was there periodically at the hospital in the pathology department, where her mother, Rosa Avramovna, a well-deserved gynecologist in Tomsk, worked. She personally took care of her daughter's health and pregnancy. Ivan Ilyich, her father, also connected all his connections. The best cardiologists were constantly controlling the condition of the pregnant Ella. Sonia was born in Tomsk, and a couple of weeks after her discharge, Boris took her wife with her newborn daughter to Leningrad. Lana found out that Rosa Avramovna is still alive and well, almost years old, and lives in Tomsk, not far from her youngest daughter. And although Lala rarely sees her relatives, they call each other quite often. And also, Grandma Rose refused to believe in the death of her only granddaughter. She still sincerely believes that Sonia will be found. Lala returned home late in the evening, noticeably worried. Thoughts were boiling in her head. What became known until it was built into a logical chain. But it was getting more and more like Sonia and Svetlana were twin sisters. Igor didn't say anything to Lana yet. He said that his leg was very painful and he went to bed early. In the morning, after working with his husband, she grabbed a notebook. She had to write everything down and structure it. While Lana was writing and analyzing all the information, the plan for the trip to Tomsk was getting bigger and bigger in his head. We need to meet Rosa Avramovna. The task was difficult. We need to somehow get off work. She still hasn't been allowed to take a vacation because she's been working recently. Then we need to explain everything to Igor. We need to find out about Rosa Avramovna's address. And, in the end, not to scare the old lady with our visits. On Saturday, right after work, Lana went to Ella Lazarevna. The door was closed for a long time. The owner herself did it. It turned out that Natasha ran to the store and Ella was alone. They had breakfast recently, and there was also a silver coffee service on the table, and on a flat, shiny dish there were sandwiches with sausage and cheese. Have a coffee with sandwiches, dear. You're right, enjoy. With pleasure. How delicious the fresh coffee smells. Svetlana poured herself a cup of aromatic drink. I'm on my way to you. Lana got some fresh air in her chest and revealed a pre-prepared story that will help her get the address of the old lady with the pillowcase. She said that she was going to Tomsk with her husband very soon on his business, and it will be easy for her to go to the elderly mother of Ella Lazarevna if she needed to be transferred something from St. Petersburg. The plan was a success, and after a short conversation, Lana had a phone number and address of Rosa Avramovna. Before leaving, Lana asked the owner for permission to visit the laundry room, and after receiving permission, she slipped into Boris Lvovich's office in the shade. There, from the album she had already known, she borrowed 2 photos of Sony, promising to return them to her. Then she said goodbye and left. At home, she was also waiting for coffee. Right? Dissolvable? Igor fried an egg. Something's a bit late today, my dear. She was late for the shift. He kissed his late wife and said breakfast is ready. Lana rehearsed 1,000 times how she would tell her husband about her adventures in the last month. You have to start with an ambulance. Then tell about the portrait in black frame. Then everything was fine as it was. But suddenly, even for herself, she said, Igor, I have a twin sister. The husband, who at that moment made a sip of coffee, snorted, coughed, and puked on his wife's eyes. Lana looked at him completely seriously. In their family, it was not customary to joke around or play with each other. Igor and Svetlana always tried to discuss everything and make important decisions together. After telling her husband the truth, Lana immediately began to prove herself. She took out 2 photo cards from her bag and pulled out her husband. Look, what do you think? Who is this? Igor looked at the photo and then at his wife with a dismay. Lana, seeing his confusion, decided to tell him everything in order. In half an hour, they discussed how to organize a trip to Tomsk. Igor had already used his vacation, but he didn't want to send his wife to another city. It's okay. He'll take a few days for his own account. The money was saved. They took the train in a postcard car. They settled in a hotel, decided to rest on the road, spend the night, and visit Rosa Avramovna in the morning. A clear plan of action was drawn up. To avoid shocking the old lady with the appearance of a resurrected granddaughter, Svetlana bought large dark glasses that well hid parts of her face. She collected her hair in a bunch and tied a light gas scarf to her head. The meeting was agreed on the phone. Rosa Avramovna already knew about the upcoming visit of guests from St. Petersburg, who were bringing gifts from her daughter. Ella gave her a small envelope with a fluffy web of webbing and a box of Leningrad sweets. Rosa Avramovna lived alone. In the apartment, despite the presence of 2 fluffy cats and a cage with parrots, there was perfect order. The old lady herself was still strong and full of strength. She kept her back straight and moved quickly. Not a gram of gray, thick curly hair, painted in black, and even a light makeup. She greeted the guests with a friendly but reserved manner. She invited them to come, but did not offer them tea. Having received a gift from Ella, the woman, without turning it around, put it on the table and, apparently out of pure politeness, asked if they had arrived for a long time. No, we didn't. Rosa Avramovna, Igor started. You see, we came to Tomsk on purpose to talk to you. We have one delicate thing to discuss with you. Rose sat down at the table and looked at Igor and Lana. The thing is, she asked again and added a serious tone. Say it boldly, don't be shy. Igor continued, looking at his silent wife. We wanted to ask you about your birth. In your maternity home my wife's mother gave birth. Your daughter gave birth there and in the same year. Igor could not formulate the question and constantly fought. The old woman froze and looked at Lana. It seemed she could not even hear what Igor was saying. Her eyes were rounded, her lips opened, and she quickly exhaled what she had said. It's you. Her voice reminded her of quiet cellist. She raised her hand to her lips. Lana quickly said, "Rosa Avramovna, don't be afraid, please." She took off her glasses and untied her scarf. "I'm not Sonia. I'm not a ghost. My name is Svetlana." Rosa Avramovna was sorry to look at her. In a moment, from a stately old woman with a proud posture, she turned into a weak old woman. Her shoulders were sharply lowered. Her face was wrinkled as if from unbearable pain. Her eyes were filled with tears. "I know who you are, baby." She closed her face with her hands and cried silently. Igor and Lana froze without knowing how to react. A couple of minutes later, Rosa Avramovna took herself in her hands, took out a handkerchief from her pocket, and wiped her tears. "It's time to repent. I committed a terrible sin before the Lord and before you, my girl. I lived my life for a minute, not forgetting about it. I don't know if you'll forgive me, if your parents will forgive me, and if it's possible to forgive." Gynecologist with a year experience in work told the truth that had been lying on her heart for almost years. The doctor, who had saved the lives of mothers and their children, committed a crime. In mid-November, there was a terrible thaw. The snow fell early and had time to melt, and the sudden frost, which had hit the city, turned the city into a solid lump. Olga Morozova was brought to the ambulance at p.m. A very young pregnant woman went to the hospital, and after sliding on the icy surface, couldn't stand on her feet. She hit herself hard and was very scared for the child. The driver passing by the car stopped and ran up to the woman who was bathing. Alya sat down, twisted, grabbing her belly with her hands, and was in pain. The driver called an ambulance from the nearest taxi, and the pregnant woman was taken to the maternity hospital. The waters were washed away early. She was still in the ambulance, and the fight didn't start. The night was hard. By morning, Olga gave birth to a twin. The doctor told her that one child had not survived. The next day and night, Olga cried out in shock. The nurse gave her sedative, but it didn't help much. She regained her strength a little, only when she was brought back to life. The deceased girl was called Anfisa in honor of her grandmother and buried. Olga did not participate in the process. Pavel did everything himself. After 1.5 years, Captain Morozov with his young wife Olga and daughter Svetlana went to a new place of service in the city of Krasnoyarsk. On the night of November, another woman tried her best to become a mother. Rosa Avramovna, a well-deserved gynecologist who had seen a lot in her lifetime, looked at her tortured daughter, lying with her eyes closed in a state of almost unconsciousness. Her heart was torn apart by pain and sorrow. She looked at the pale face of her daughter, huge blue circles under her eyes and dry, compressed lips, and thought, "Is this fair? Could it be that God does not hear her prayers?" The most difficult births have just ended, for which her daughter risked her life, but the child did not scream. Rosa wrapped her dead grandchild's body in her blanket and quickly, decisively stepped out of the maternity ward. Rosa Avramovna Renova fell in love and married. At the age of, she gave birth to her first daughter, Ella. The husband of the Rose was fabulously beautiful. Light hair, blue eyes, black eyebrows, thin, almost aristocratic features of the face. Perfectly folded, tall and slim, but, alas, with a broken heart and a passion for a horse-drawn horse. Lazar Bagarat was an artist. He worked in a drama theater, loved music, played musical instruments, and sang beautifully, especially romances. He liked feasts, and he could drink a lot without paying attention to his shortcomings. It is not surprising that Rosa was pregnant early, but a year later she got married again, and she had a second daughter, Masha. Rosa's new husband was a man of principle, loved children. He provided the family with everything they needed, but without excesses. Rosa Avramovna was a good mother. She loved both of her daughters very much, but she worried more about Ella. Ella was weak in health, often had an angina, and this gave complication to the heart. The girl looked very much like her father, the same beautiful and beautiful. Rosa prayed that her beauty would help her to successfully marry and was happy when she became a prospective scientist for Ella. She insisted that her daughter marry him. Boris was years older, and he was already a science candidate and was a profitable party and a promising groom. Boris Lvovich was crazy about Ella, and in the end she agreed. They got married. Besides a beautiful wife, Rose Avramovna's son-in-law certainly wanted to have beautiful children, especially daughters. But this caused difficulties. 2 unsuccessful pregnancies and such a heavy, exhausted third, the tragedy that ended. Rose Avramovna stood next to the phone and thought that she was doing the right thing. Every mother is ready to do anything to help her child. A recent conversation with her son-in-law came to mind that a family without children cannot exist. She thought about a young aspirant whom her daughter was telling about. The girl was a blood and milk and paid too much attention to her teacher. She thought that Ella would die if Boris leaves her. The thoughts were going through Rosa's head like a snake's gulp. It's her, Rosa, who is now doing justice. She will make everyone happy equally. The woman decidedly took the phone and dialed the number. Yes, I'm listening. Rosa Avramovna, it's you. Boris's voice was trembling with excitement. I'm fine. Girl, centimeters. Dash. The mother-in-law spoke out loud. She remembered that night very well. Everything was happening as if in a dream. The grief was with the mistakes and premature births that gave birth to twins. Svetlana and Igor were silent. There was nothing to ask. There was a tense silence in the room. Thank you for telling the truth. Lana spoke quietly, almost whispered. Igor took his wife by the hand and squeezed her tightly. They stood up silently and went out. Wait. The old lady stopped them. She took a book out of the box of the servant, took out the envelope, and pulled the rope. This is a letter. It contains the whole truth. A man cannot live forever. I could carry this secret with me to the grave, but I would not have peace in that world. You cannot change what is predetermined by God, and it is impossible. Ellie was destined to survive the death of her daughter. In one way or another, she survived, even if it was years later. Rosa Avramovna touched Svetlana's hands and said, "Give Sonia this envelope. I know she's alive, and you'll find her. I believe in it. She comes to me in my dreams. Forgive me if you can." They returned home on Monday. They didn't say much about what happened on the train. It was a shock that they had to get away from. Lana was pressing on Igor all the way like a little girl looking for protection. Igor was just sighing and stroking her on the head. 2 days of the weekend were left, taken into account by family circumstances. After wiping away the road dust, they sat down to drink tea. Lonnie had no peace of mind. You know, Igor, I still can't get over the thought that Sonia is alive. Rosa Avramovna is sure of it. Honey, don't think about it. Maybe the old woman has lost her mind. She's going to jail. You'd better eat. Will you? He stretched out a cheese sandwich for his wife. I don't want to. Lana turned around and looked out the window. Then she pulled herself to the vase. Zephyr, you've been eating sweets for a week now. Igor moved the vase closer to her with the Zephyr. You see, Ella Lazarovna said that Sonia just disappeared. No one saw her fall from the mountain, and they didn't find her body down there. Only one pair of sneakers, and there was blood on the stones. Well, who knows? Igor shook his shoulders. Maybe the bear was dragging him away. Try to understand. If she had survived, she would have been found long ago. When was that? I think it was on August. August? How interesting. Remember, we were at Kostia's place in the country. We were celebrating the 3rd day of the year. I will never forget that day. You were so angry when you fell into the enemy's bike. You thought you had turned your neck. But this was really interesting. Perhaps it was at that moment when Svetlana flew into the ravine that Sonia broke off the cliff. Exactly. What a coincidence. Igor, you're a genius. I didn't even remember and didn't compare these two cases. Lana came to life. You know how it happens with twins, but like Masha and Dasha, they're even at a distance and feel each other. One hit and the other hurts. Well, you'll say too. The husband smiled. Remember yourself. Remember that your housekeeper bit Masha? Where are you with Dasha? In the store. And she rubbed her butt and wheezed. You were also surprised that she was not from that, not from anything. And she also hurt. I told you that back then. When Sonia fell, at the same moment I fell. Yes, she is wounded, and that's why my leg hurts, you know? A healthy leg hurts. Igor took his wife by the hand, brought his face closer to her, and looking right in her eyes, said, "My dear, I love you very much. But, my dear, you are clearly getting too close. Coincidences happen in life, and I don't believe in mysticism. And you're a doctor, actually." He quickly poked her nose and smacked her forehead. "I'll go take a nap." She said that. The next morning, Igor woke up from his wife's stale gaze. Lana was sitting on her bed, pressing her legs against herself, patiently looking into his face and waiting for him to wake up. "What's wrong?" Igor asked in a frightened manner. "What happened? Have you ever seen your face in a dream?" "What did I see?" Igor asked again, surprised, opening his sleepy eyes. "But did you see your face?" "I don't know," he thought. "Probably not. But I saw it today. Sonia came to me in my dream. And what did she say?" "Nothing. She was silent, smiling, and doing this with her hand." Lana showed a gesture with her brush, as if she was calling someone to her. Igor sat on the bed, pulled his wife to himself, and hugged her tightly. "I think you should go to your mother's place. The girls missed you. It's nice there. Fruits, sunsea. You'll get some sleep and rest." Lana silently slipped out of her husband's arms and headed to the bathroom. They were silent for a long time after breakfast. Svetlana interrupted the silence. "I'm leaving." She looked seriously at her husband, and she said, "I will look for my sister. Igor, I need to find her, you know. I feel that she didn't come to me in vain in my dream today. She calls me for help. She asked me to look for her. Please, darling, it's very important for me. Will you help me?" Igor didn't believe in miracles, but he loved his wife. So he just answered, "Yes, dear, I'm with you." 2 weeks have passed since Lana and her husband visited Tomsk. None of the relatives knew about the secret of the two sisters who were separated at birth. Lana was afraid to tell her parents about this news without any preparation and decided that Mom and Dad would find out everything only if she found her sister. She didn't want to see her daughter's death for the second time. Ella Lazarovna also didn't know about her mother's crime. Lana didn't want to hurt her in vain. For her, it wouldn't change anything, and her mother didn't rush to confess her daughter's crime. She thought that she had freed herself from her heavy burden of secrets and risked her daughter's life, who had a weak heart and didn't want to. Svetlana was sorry for her, and Igor called Rosa Avramovna the old witch and said that she was in prison. Lana visited Ella Lazarovna twice when she arrived. Now her goal was information about the last years of Sonia's life. But as it usually happens, the mother knew little about her friends and events in her daughter's life, although they lived together. And yet Svetlana's notebook was filled with some facts. Unlike Igor, Lana believed in mysticism and the mental connection between twins. That is why she recorded all the dates when Sonia was ill or in difficult situations. Then she called her parents and, under various pretexts, persistently made them remember what happened to her in childhood at the same period. For example, at the age of, they got sick with a cold at the same time. And in the 4th grade, in November, Sonia and she were getting rid of adenoids. When Svetlana turned, she was in the hospital in the fire department. Dennis threw the kettle away, and Lana sprained her left hand. And at Sonia's, almost at the same time, the left hand had a fracture. Lana sat over the notebook for hours. She wrote down the events, drew some schemes, analyzed and planned. Gradually, she realized that she had to find the guy Sonia was with on her last trip. Find out in detail where and under what circumstances she disappeared. As she asked questions and listened to Ella Lazarevna, Lana learned more and more about her sister's character. Sonia studied at the university as an archaeologist, not as a geologist, as Inga's laugh told her. But she dropped out of the last year. Even Boris Slavovich, who always instigated his daughter in everything, was extremely outraged. But the parents' persuasion did not bring the result. It's time to change. Enough of living by Savdep's patterns. Who needs your education? Freedom of personality and creativity. That's the main thing. Sonia protested. Together with her boyfriend Stas, she played in some rock band. She rode motorcycles and rode around different rock festivals. Here, musical education was useful. When her father died, Sonia got a decent amount of money and a collection of expensive antique coins. Her father was her closest friend and advisor. She shared her secret with him, not her mother. She sought support and comfort from him. Boris Slavovich was an unbreakable wall, a fortress, in which she always found protection and help. And suddenly this fortress collapsed. Although the professor was already over, he seemed to be completely healthy and actively working. He died not on the hospital bed, but in his office, sitting at the desk. It was a big blow for both his daughter and his wife, Boris Slavovich. Ella Lazarevna had an insult, and Sophia just broke her neck. While Ella was in the hospital for almost a month, Sonia didn't sleep at home. Her neighbors saw her as a strange young woman, not very sober. When her mother was discharged, Sophia had to take care of her. Besides traditional medicine, Sonia brought in a Chinese man who lived with them and used everything he could to heal Ella. Massage, needle-picking, homeopathy. As a result of their efforts, in 6 months, Ella Lazarovna started talking again and slowly moved on. Sonia would not dare to deny that she is not a grateful daughter. No festivals and rock concerts. Sonia did not go anywhere and stopped communicating with Stas. All attention to her mother, only if she would get better. Stas was a negative character for Ella Lazarovna. She knew little about him and did not want to know. Was sure that it was him who knocked her daughter down on the right track. Don't contact us with these anti-heroes. Sonia would have graduated from the institute, married, would have given birth to them and Boris's grandchildren. It's all his fault. When her mother got up, Sonia returned to her usual life. On the day, her father organized her own rock band with a strange name, the Not Demons. She found a room for rehearsals in some kind of department store. She bought the equipment and gathered talented musicians. To her mother's disappointment, she met Stas again. It was a small discovery about Sonia's death. She visited Altai every summer. She liked touristic trips to ancient, mysterious places, which she had left behind in secret and legends. From every trip, she brought home some souvenirs and told her mother another beautiful fairy tale about the evil and kind spirits of Altai. In addition, various music festivals were often held on the shores of Khatun on the Turbices. On one of them, Sonia met a guy from Altai Mountains, and it turned out that he had long lived and worked in St. Petersburg. Ella listened to how Sonia was delighted to tell about her new acquaintance, and secretly hoped that Stas would finally disappear from her daughter's life. But Sonia was more delighted with the wild places he visited in Altai, and how great it was that he could take them there. This guy's mother knew little about it, too. Only his name and the place where he worked. His name was Kiria. That's what Sonia called him. He worked as a train driver in the subway. Sonia was with him on that evil trip. Ella didn't let any of the boys to the threshold when they came to tell about the terrible incident. How could they not save her daughter? Ella Lazarevna had not yet experienced her grief. She cried and ate hope for a wonderful resurrection of her daughter. Every morning and before going to bed, she read prayers to the icon of the Mother of God, begging to save her daughter if she was still alive. After all, the body was never found. After the pain, her cataract was destroyed. The woman was almost blind. "Well, there is something after all," said Svetlana Igor, opening her notes and schemes. "So, here's what we have. First, Kirill, a metro driver, born in Altai Mountains. Second, Sonia's rock band, the Neidmans. Third, some Stas, with whom she was in a relationship. In the fourth place, the rock club Goliath, where Sonia and Stas hung out in. And finally, the rental of a room in some kind of a DC for the rap of a band named Sofia Borisovna Kramer. Not much." Skeptically, Igor called out, "Machinist in the metro of, go find this Kirill. You don't even know his last name. Not a demon, a new band. They only played for a year. Or maybe they didn't play at all, but they were preparing for the show. Stas is a dark person. Nothing is known about him. The rock club Goliath. 5 years have passed. Is this club still there? Do you have the address? And the rent is a dead end. In any DK, the contract could be signed in black, and no documents would be left." Igor at one point broke everything that Lana had been packing for so long. She was stunned, looking down at the counter. "I'll tell you this, my dear. Go to Dennis. Your brother is a cop, after all. They have their connections there. In the case of the missing Sofia Kramer, they're all who were with her on the tour. Nobody on the phone talked to us, and he did something else. It's all about friends and acquaintances, since the secret investigation has been stalled." Lana looked at her husband with admiration. "Igor, you're so smart." She waved and hung on his neck. Lana didn't want to tell Dennis about the shocking facts that were revealed about their family and her birth. She decided. The sister had her own levers of pressure on her younger brother. She knew who he was, and she could persuade him to any adventure. Without explaining why and who needed it, she took the promise from her brother to help, and then explained what was required of him. And the word Dennis always held. "My brother called me 3 days later. Take the pen and write it down." He said in a very serious tone, "Danichka, you're my hero. I always knew you were the best brother in the world." Said Lana, "I'm ready. Say it." At work, Svetlana was appreciated. The management respected her. Colleagues just loved her. The sad news was that she was going to quit and ruined everyone's mood. The whole shift was going back to the question, "Maybe you'll stay. How can we live without you?" But Lana had already decided everything, especially since her legs started to worry more and more. "Maybe I'll come back," she gave hope to her coworkers. The next day, after breakfast, Lana put on the table a sheet with the names and addresses of the guys from the touristic group. Together with Sofia, there were only 5 of them. They decided to start with those who were closer geographically. Igor called to go alone. Lana looked tired after the shift. It was a Saturday day. The probability of finding the right people at home was increasing. Stanislav Igorovich Sokolovsky was not found at the address written. The old man, about years old, with a lush mustache and bald head, opened the door and was extremely unkind. He said that this bastard hadn't been seen at home for a year, and the last time he called from Cherepovets, his aunt was on the maternity line. The second visit was more successful. Igor got into a multi-public communal apartment where the old neighbor's grandmother kindly hosted guests at the right door. "Here's where the little donkey lives. You're a sweetie, knock. He's home. He must be sleeping." The door was knocked, and there was a noise, steps, then the door was opened. Kirya turned out to be Alexander Kareev, not Kirill. He was a cute, year-old, medium-sized, strong-bodied. The unhappy, sleepy voice asked, "Who are you? What do you want?" In minutes, both were already at the bus stop. Igor called home from the phone and told his wife to wait for the guests. "Sonia didn't say anything about you. You look like two drops of water. I saw the twins only in the movies. Sasha smiled, seeing Svetlana. I haven't been there for a long time. I live far away. Lana lied, not blinking. They talked for a long time. Sasha turned out to be an open and pleasant interlocutor. He told her everything about the last trip and, after the story, asked Lana for forgiveness for not taking her sister away. Sasha, tell me, are you sure she's dead? Lana asked. From your story, it's clear that she fell off the cliff, but the body was not found. There is no confirmation that Sonia died. We were looking for her. We saw only in the morning that it fell down. There was its scarf and shoes and blood on the stones. We thought it was buried under the stones, but the stones were disassembled and found nothing. A lot of strange things happen at Altai. The forces of different people are many in conflict. Only the spirits know for sure. Shamans with spirits speak, they can ask. Sasha suddenly shut up, looking at Igor. The one standing by the window slightly tapped his finger on the temple, saying, "Think what you're saying." And someone asked the spirits, "Is she alive or dead?" Lana was constantly interrogating. "To be honest, I don't know. I think she died. Just where could she have gone?" Logically, only one assumption was broken, and the bear took the body. There were traces there. Svetlana asked Sasha to take her to the place of her sister's death. Igor was absolutely against it. He hoped that when Lana found out how it was, she would leave her plans to go to Altai. But it turned out to be the opposite. Now his wife insisted even more on the trip, suggesting that she should see her sister's death place, since she doesn't have a grave. No contracts of success were made. Igor explained to his wife that she would not let go of one. And at work, they may not give any more days for their own account. In addition, they do not have any money at all now, and if they fire him, then there will be nothing at all. He promised that Lana would be able to attend the place of her sister's death next summer. But everything was in vain. Svetlana was stubbornly on her own. It was not possible to convince her to her wife. Decided to go. It was time to prepare for the hike. Sasha, as a tourist, helped with the sleeping bags and tent. But we had to buy hiking shoes and backpacks. In Altai Mountains, Lana, Sasha, and Igor met Toha, Alexander's friend. A guy, years old, athletic, under the heat of middle age, with dark tan on his face. He was wearing a braided jacket over a striped shirt and camouflage pants, which were very eye-catching. His sharp, wide face with large features was cut through the scar from a burn on his right cheek. Toha smiled at the whole family, seeing Sasha with his friends. Igor and Toha shook hands and got to know each other. "And this is my wife, Svetlana." Igor introduced his wife, hugging her shoulders. "Hello. Maybe it's just Lana." "Toha, is that Anton?" Svetlana smiled, stretching her hand. "Toha, it's Toha." Sasha laughed, clapping his hands. "Antonin Sergei Vladimirovich. For a cute girl, it's just Seryoza. Or Toha. Everyone calls him that." He bowed down and kissed Lana's hand. She noticed that the leather on Sergei's hand was also in the scars. They left under the jacket and continued to the very neck. "Well, let's go to the carriage." Toha laughed happily, pointing to the old UAZ with a tarpaulin roof. Svetlana was decided to land next to the driver, where it was less shaking. The path was not close. They were driving happily. The tape recorder was playing. Sergei was telling the local tales. He drove the car well. The whole journey took almost hours. They stopped twice to warm up their feet and have a sandwich. At one of the stops, Lana asked Sasha where such terrible scars from the Toha come from. A short answer to that, in memory of Kandahar. Altai's beauties charmed Lana. She was so excited, jumped on the seat, and happily shouted, "Igor, look, look!" Her husband was also impressed by this area. He would photograph the landscape on the soapbox from time to time and would think that he didn't take the spare film. By the evening, we reached the village where the hiking route to the lake began. The village is on the Khatun River with ordinary wooden houses. You don't need a yard, as Lana thought. Sasha and Sergei talked to the local Altai people, and apparently, after receiving permission, they set up tents next to his house. The owner turned out to be friendly and invited the guests to the table. For dinner, they were offered chajan, something like croutons. They must serve it as a sign of respect. Sergei explained. Lana drank, although she did not like sour milk. They also tried local cheese, blood sausage, and cakes. Everything had a very unusual but pretty pleasant taste. Early in the morning, they set off. Having completed the instruction on how to behave in various possible situations, Sasha led the guys on the route. Sergei stayed in the village. It was necessary to cover km to the parking lot. Lana admired literally everything around. She had a feeling that they were in a fairy tale. She had never seen such a beauty of nature anywhere else, except in pictures. Sasha has often taken tourists to the Birch Lake. The Solinchik Lakes have such an unusual color. It was there that they went last summer, but they didn't make it. Except for the wonderful views, the head was surrounded by the unusual taste of the air. It was filled with the aromas of cedar. Then climbing over the steep bank and going into the forest, then returning down the rocky slope, leading the travelers to the very water. They walked longer than usual until the first stop. The guys, not used to such march thrusters, moved slowly. Ulan was tired of walking and stopped more often than planned. Sasha didn't catch up. The main thing was to set up tents before dark. Here was already a firewood, covered with logs and old cedar, serving as a stoma and a footpath, folded on top of each other, used as a bed for the tent. Around the glade were growing huge logs. Low shrubs grew, and the powerful cedars were resting on the tops of the stars. That's how it all happened on this parking lot. Sonia and Stas went down the path towards the river. They had to discuss something. Sasha said, "Well, let's go, come on, show me where." Lana was excited. They passed minutes. The cliff was completely horizontal, but not deep, just 2 meters, and behind it there was a steep, rocky descent, meters and again climbed. Here, supposedly, it fell. Then it rolled along with the stones. But down there where the sneakers were found, we won't go down here. We have to go forward for about 3 kilometers and then go down and come back. It's tomorrow in the light. They sat by the fire of darkness, gazed at the low, incredibly starry sky, and went to sleep. In the morning, Lana stood and looked at the neatly folded, one on the other rock. A dry branch sticking out from above, tied with a short yellow scarf. The place of Sony's death. But there's no one inside this grave. I'll stay here a little. You go, Lana quietly said. Igor and Sasha walked meters away and sat on large stones. Lana went down on her knees and put her hand on a large round stone. "Maybe you can tell me where my sister is?" She whispered. "You came to take your reflection." A low squeaky voice was heard behind her back. Lana suddenly turned around. Only half a step away from her stood an old, strange-looking woman. She was dressed in dark clothes, looking like a bear's skin. From under a very unusual headdress made of long feathers, apparently from birds, gray, tangled strands of hair were hanging on her shoulders. "Let's go," said the shaman. Sonia looked at Stas and felt something completely new to this person. It was a sense of contempt and stubbornness. She used to feel sorry for him, hoping that he would change. She thought that her love would definitely save him, heal him, and heal him. How naive. Now Sonia realized how ridiculous her hopes were. What did she find in this pathetic person? He asks her for money again. No, he doesn't. She asks, then presses on pity, then goes into reproach, then manipulates her feelings, talking about her crazy love for her. Bitter, disgusting, it's a shame to realize it finally. Stas, stop it, I've heard it 100 times, it won't work anymore. She almost screamed. Baby, listen, this is the last time. I promise, you know me. Stas was whispering. He tried to grab Sonia by the waist and press her to himself, but she resisted and ran away. Yes, that's the thing I know. It's not your promise. I warned you, Stas. I said I wouldn't give you money anymore. My dear Sonia, you know you're the only person who can save me. I'm everything for you. You know I'll make mountains for you. No, I said no. The stream of his words was firmly interrupted in sleep. It was already dark. It was time to return to the camp. Her voice sounded tough and cold. She turned around and headed towards the camp. But she managed to take just a few steps when she felt how a strong male hand grabbed her from behind for clothes and fell to the ground. "Oh, you bitch," Stas whispered, lying on her body. "You know, they'll just bang me. They don't forgive me for my car debts." He literally screamed out of anger, spitting words into her face. "You want me to die? Aren't you afraid to die yourself?" Stas squeezed the girl's throat. His eyes were covered with animal anger. Sonia tried to scream, but couldn't breathe. She was struggling with all her strength, scratching and kicking everything she could reach, but the boy's hands continued to squeeze her throat even harder. Finally, Sonia found a stone under her hand and, grabbing it, she grabbed it and hit Stas on the head. His hands immediately weakened, and he fell to the ground. After falling out of the heavy, softened body, the frightened girl saw blood dripping from his visc. "I killed him." A terrible thought came to her mind. The stress and horror of the thought that she was now a murderer made her body wimpy and disobedient. Sonia looked back at the still Stas, repeating the same phrase. "I killed him. I killed him." She didn't notice how she approached the edge of the cliff. And when her leg went down, she couldn't keep her balance, and, shouting, flew into the abyss. The guy sat by the fire and sang to the guitar. Stas returned to the camp, swinging and holding his bloodied hand behind his head. "Where is this crazy woman?" he asked, sad. Sophia was not in the camp. When asked what happened to him and where Sonia was, he lied that he fell and hit himself hard on the stone, and Sonia left before him, and he thought she had been in the camp for a long time. It was already dark. The night was disturbing. The guys took the flashlights and looked for the girl in the nearby parking lot. When it dawned, Stas took them to the place of the conversation with Sonia. There, under the cliff below, among the stones, they saw a bright yellow spot. It was Sonia's scarf. Going down, they found another one of her sneakers and noticed bloodstains, as well as the footprints of the bear's paws. While rolling down the steep slope, Sonia was lying on the rocks. Her body was in a terrible pain. She couldn't move. Apparently, she broke her right leg and her hand in her hand. With all her might, she tried to scream, but the sound was weak, and the parking lot was far away. "She won't be heard from here." Sonia, in despair, closed her eyes and whispered, "Help me." A hot tear rolled down her cheek. The sky quickly turned dark. The night was coming. Suddenly, in the twilight, Sonia saw a strange figure. She thought it was not a human, but something alien. Something similar to a quiver doll was approaching her, as if dancing. A cheeky, grumpy face leaned over the girl. The last thing Sonia saw before she lost consciousness. There was either a smile or a scowl on this wrinkled face. The girl woke up in a day. She was lying on the skin of some beast. Her leg was tightly wrapped and tied with a rope. The right hand was wrapped in some kind of bag. The body in the bruises and bruises was burning with fire. Through the blurred pain of consciousness, Sonia heard frequent, as if counting seconds, of the shamanic drumbeats. The following week, consciousness returned to her and left her again in the heat of burning pain and fever. 10 days later, she finally woke up. Her leg was badly damaged, a fracture in the shin and a rupture of ligaments on the foot. The spine was probably also injured. The girl could barely move. The shaman, who saved her life, turned out to be kind, despite her frightening looks. An old woman, short in height, with long gray strands of hair. "You'll get better," she said. "The Lord of Ali forgave you," said the shaman, smudging wounds and wounds of sleep with some stinky fat. "I can't move. I have to. I have to lie down and sleep. The time will come, and you will get up, and I can walk. You can't." The Altai spirits said they would let you go when you meet your reflection. "Drink." The shaman Kama pulled Sonia Piao with a bitter healing potion. Kama walked fast. The guys barely managed to catch up. A minute after, they came to her house. It was a tall ale, a cone-shaped structure made of tree trunks covered with bark and animal skins. It was surrounded by bizarre figures carved out of cedar. On some of them, colorful ribbons were being developed in the wind. The shaman stopped the man with a gesture and pointed at Lana. "You go." Svetlana, with a freezing heart, entered the aisle. Sonia sat at the mirror and broke dry grass. She raised her head and smiled, looking into her sister's eyes. "I knew you would come for me. Kama told me you were there. You are my reflection." Two young women, who looked like each other like two drops of water, were sitting with their ducks on the banks of the Kuban River. A bicycle bell rang from behind, and the girls' voices rang out in the distance. "Aunt Sonia! Aunt Sonia! Uncle Sasha ordered you to tell him that Boria is whining and refuses to sleep without you. And Grandma Alya is busy. Her pa is getting upset. And Grandma Ella sang Boria songs on the phone, but he still doesn't sleep. This is because he is whining. And he also cried. Grandma Ella spoiled him. She always whines with him." Lana and Sonia laughed. "Dasha, the pie is not upset, and she's crying," says Svetlana's daughter. Masha, who said that Boria was spoiled. Lucas smiled and asked Sophia. "Grandfather says, Masha, Dasha, he's not spoiled. He's just very small. He can't even speak, so he's crying. How else can he communicate with us?" Lana hugged her daughter and kissed her in the head. "Mom! And also, some uncle called you from work. He said you should call me back when you come back. They are afraid to do some operation without your advice." Dad told him. "Okay, honey, I'll find out everything from Dad." "Thank you, girls," said Sonia. "Tell Uncle Sasha that we are already going." She turned to Lanya. "Well, you're doing well, sister. Yes, you can go home, but that's enough for the years. Girls, look at the fish we caught. And your dad said it wouldn't be cool today." Masha and Dasha looked in the bucket in turn, delighted wow. And then, having sat down on the bike, they rolled back home. Lana and Sonia gathered the fishing rods, took their poor catch, and with a smooth walk, without a little limping, walked down the path, chatting happily about something.